The Crixians thought they had won when they captured Lieutenant Sarah Chen. The 7-foot-tall arthropodal aliens chittered and clicked their mandibles in what passed for laughter among their species as they watched the small human female through the energy barrier of her cell. "Such fragile bones," the guard captain rasped in heavily accented standard. "How did your species ever make it to the stars?" His subordinates clicked their approval at the mockery, their iridescent carapaces gleaming under the harsh prison lights. Sarah sat cross-legged on the cell floor, her dark eyes studying their movements with unsettling intensity. She had been captured during a raid on their forward operating base in the Centauri system, the sole survivor of her squad. The Crixians had expected her to break during interrogation, like their other prisoners. Instead, she had remained eerily calm, almost analytical. They didn't understand. They couldn't. The Crixians evolved on a high-gravity world, developing thick exoskeletons and powerful limbs. They saw humans as weak, with their soft flesh and relative lack of natural armor. What they failed to grasp was that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their bodies, but in their minds and in their sheer, stubborn determination. Sarah had spent her captivity studying the guard rotations, the slight fluctuations in the energy barrier's frequency, and most importantly, the Crixians' own biology. Their rigid exoskeletons made them strong but inflexible. Their compound eyes gave them excellent peripheral vision, but struggled with rapid changes in light intensity. On the 7th day of her captivity, during the midnight shift change, she made her move. When the energy barrier cycled for its routine maintenance, Sarah was ready. She had gathered the metallic food tray they'd provided, scratching it against the floor during her meals to create a reflective surface. As the barrier flickered, she angled the makeshift mirror to catch and amplify the overhead lights, creating a strobing effect that momentarily disoriented the guard's sensitive compound eyes. In the confusion, she struck. Years of zero-gravity combat training had taught her how to generate maximum force with minimal leverage. The first guard went down when she targeted the joints in his exoskeleton, the same weak points she had identified during days of careful observation. The second guard barely had time to reach for his weapon before Sarah was on him, using his own mass and rigid structure against him. A precise strike to his thoracic joint sent him crashing into the third guard, their carapaces cracking against each other. The guard captain managed to sound the alarm, but by then, Sarah had already acquired one of their plasma rifles. The weapon was designed for their 3-fingered hands, but she had spent her captivity mentally practicing the modifications needed to fire it with human digits. Impossible. The captain chittered as she disabled the security systems. "You were contained." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. "Your first mistake was assuming that because we're physically weaker, we're less dangerous. Your second mistake was giving me time to think." The ensuing chaos in the prison facility became legendary among both species. One human armed with stolen weapons against an entire garrison of Crixian warriors. They had expected a desperate last stand. Instead, they found themselves facing a methodical, strategic assault that used their own security systems against them. Sarah didn't just fight her way out, she systematically disabled their communications, released other prisoners, and downloaded their tactical databases. By the time she hijacked a shuttle and broke atmosphere, the facility was in shambles, and the Crixian High Command had lost access to vital military intelligence. The story spread quickly through both human and Crixian space. The aliens who had laughed at humanity's physical weaknesses were forced to reassess their entire strategic approach to the war. They had dismissed humans as soft, easily broken creatures, only to discover that this very adaptability made them formidable opponents. 3 months later, when the Crixian hierarchy signed the peace accords, their supreme commander made a specific point of addressing Lieutenant Chen, who attended as part of the human delegation. "We have fought many species across many stars, the commander admitted, mandibles clicking softly. But none have taught us so costly a lesson about the danger of underestimating an opponent. We looked at your species and saw what you lacked compared to us. We should have looked closer to see what you possessed that we did not. Sarah stood at attention, her face professionally neutral, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes. The universe is vast, Commander. Perhaps there's room enough for all of us to learn from each other. The Crixians never again made the mistake of laughing at captured human soldiers. They had learned, at great cost, that humanity's greatest weapons were not their ships or their guns, but their ability to observe, adapt, and overcome, and their absolute refusal to accept defeat. Even now, decades later, Crixian warrior schools teach the story of the lieutenant who laughed last, and young warriors learn that true strength takes many forms, not all of them wrapped in armor.